Go again.
Hello, all you wonderful, beautiful people. Welcome to Rise and Shine with Alyssa. I am your hostess, the consultress, and I am here today with a brilliant soul, Dr. Dorothy. Hello, and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Hello, darling. Good to be here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So in typical Rise and Shine fashion, I am here to have amazing conversation with brilliant people on the front lines of innovation and development of evolution. So I get the privilege and the pleasure of meeting you in another such virtual space, and just I felt the zing, and you just feel like you've got such energy that just links up and it's magnetic. That's what I want to share here in this forum, because we got on the phone and we could have spent half a day just kind of riffing and being together. So I want to welcome you here to have a conversation today about what you're up to in this world, what you're passionate about, and kind of see where that conversation takes us, because we're in the age of disruption where nothing is normal anymore and everything is up for renew and review. So I'll pass the mic over to you to kind of give us a little background about who you are and what you're up to in this world.
Who I am. I'm somebody who's been a therapist forever and for 20 plus years. And what I bring to it is also a pioneer in integrative healthcare here in the US. So I had a school for 19 years, the Institute of Healing Arts and Sciences, where it was a 4-year program in energy medicine where I trained physicians, nurses, OTs, PTs, folks in the medical community, as well as lay people about the healing impact of energy, shifting the
Oh,
energy in your body, shifting the energy around you and within you in order to create health. And so my doctoral dissertation, even though I was in psychology, was on the psychological and spiritual causes of physical disease and disorders.
mm.
And so what I do is in my work as a leadership coach, as an executive coach, and is really support people who are in transition, people who are in struggle and push, to begin to recognize that whatever's going on with them emotionally and spiritually, it is having an impact on their physical health. And so I want to support effective leadership that brings out the best in the leaders, who then can bring out the best in the leaders they're developing around and beneath them in their structure, and letting them have emotional, spiritual, and physical health rather than entering into the world of survival, which so many people on this planet are surviving. They're not living. So, yeah.
Isn't that the truth? So hold on. That was a whole lot of value you just dropped in like 45 seconds. I just want to tease out integrative health,
Right.
psychological background, a heart and soul for the root causes of what disease, where disease really comes from,
Right.
dis-ease, and how igniting that fire within about empowering yourself into your leadership can raise the tide for all boats to then go up. And so, I
Right.
mean, this is the very thread I think that had us, jumping into connection from the get-go, is because I feel like you embody that. You embody the spiritual and the emotional health,
Thank you.
having compassion for yourself and your space and your whole journey. How many of us out here feel like we're not there yet, or we'll be there one day and then we'll have arrived, right? But what I heard from you from our first conversation or two was, we're constantly on this journey of evolution and development, and looking at, I wonder what the opportunity that this is. So my question is, this passion of yours has
Yeah.
come from your path in life.
Right.
um, is there anything specific, or any time where you made a big pivot, where you thought you were up to one thing and something occurred to you and you wound up, changing how you viewed yourself or the world in order to bring your next evolution of yourself out to the world?
There's been dozens. There's been dozens, which is why I specialize in transition. I grew up in an orphanage. I was later adopted by an Irish alcoholic cop and raised in the housing projects in South Boston. So I'm a Southie girl, if you're here from the New England area. And the expectation on me was, if I could make it out of high school without getting sent up to reform school or getting pregnant, and I got a high school diploma, I would be a success story. And I did. I didn't get sent up. I didn't get pregnant at that point. And was thinking getting married and graduate in May, get married in June. And since I was, that was my plan. But in addition to getting married, I wanted to do something more, become more, do more, whatever, have an impact, make the world a better place, whatever that was. And realized that I couldn't go to college. I couldn't go to nursing school because I went to an unaccredited inner city high school. So I wasn't allowed to go to any nursing school in the United States. So nursing was out of the way. I had never met a woman who'd been to college. So college was not an option. And there was no way out. My mom said, become a waitress until you get pregnant, get married and then become a waitress till you get pregnant and then have 10, 20 kids and continue on helping the Irish race continue on. It's like, whoa, let's back up a few steps and take a look. And my way out to do service was I discovered the Catholic nuns do social work. I had been in public school till puberty. I was rather precocious. So they sent me to the nuns hoping I would stay down. And little do they realize every rather precocious adolescent girl was being sent to the nuns and all the quiet good kids were staying in the public school, which they should have kept me over there. But I went with all the other precocious wild kids who were having a good time. Although I spent a lot of time in detention, but it just, but it was for talking or passing notes or doing things. It was innocent teenage stuff. But I found out they did social work. So I applied to become a religious so I could do social work and have an impact in the world, and found out that the Catholic Church doesn't allow illegitimate children in the convent. So that was going to be out of the question too. So with all of these things, with all the things that happened, and eventually one of my teachers found a community in Canada, a French Canadian community that had never had an illegitimate child, but was willing to try it. So I went there to a French Canadian community. The mores are different in France, thank God. And they said, sure, we'll take a risk on an illegitimate kid. So I joined that community and was sent to the missions. I was excited to go to Africa, but instead it was Maine, because Maine is filled with French Canadians. And when I was there, Mother Superior said, I'm going to send you to college. And once you get a degree from an accredited college, nobody cares where you went to high school. And Mother Superiors can be very intimidating. So that dean said, okay, we'll take her. So
Wow.
you never know. Miracles happen every day. Miracles happen every day in our lives if we're willing to see them. And from there, I did social work. I worked in residential treatment. And when I eventually left religious life, I moved to Manhattan, became an international airline stewardess. And, I thought I was going to be a nun for life. And then I became a stewardess and I thought, this is a wild way to see the world, and thought I would do that for life. And then at one point got married and thought I would be married for life. So I think we all take these journeys that we think are going to be our journey until you realize, I was married 15 years and was divorced with a kindergarten and a fourth grader. Went back at my master's, opened up a private practice and saw 42 patients a week for 20 plus years. But about 3 years in, noticed patterns that certain personalities were showing up with prostate cancer or breast cancer or fibromyalgia or autoimmune disorders. And friends who were MDs said, no, it's coincidental. And I said, oh, no, it's not. So I became certified in 9 modalities of integrative healthcare, took the best of all of them and created my own. Started a school, the Institute of Healing Arts and Sciences, and for 19 years developed a 4-year program teaching physicians, nurses, OTs, PTs, and so forth, as well as lay people. And my work was so successful, and my 3rd and 4th year students did medical internships. Hospitals wanted to give me funding to research more diseases. So I opened up a nonprofit and just eventually developed 5 companies and did the $1 million payroll and did all of those things with 1099s as well as full-time employees with medical, dental, 401k match benefits and all that stuff. And life goes on and we just keep expanding and growing. And eventually my youngest left for college and I moved to Anguilla in the British West Indies for 10 years, thinking I would never come back to the States. And eventually came back to America, became a clinical instructor at Yukon Medical. I couldn't go to nursing school, but then I became a clinical instructor at one of the best medical schools in the country. You gotta have.
Hold on. Hold on. So from a woman who wasn't allowed to go to a school because of the school she came from and because of the background she came from, fast forward to where exactly?
Anywhere,
Wow.
anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the doors got opened.
The
So
doors got opened, but what it shows you is that when you truly live who you are, when, I've written 8 books, but my third book is Your Soul Sings, Your Body Dances. And that really encompasses my message that when you do what your soul calls you to do, what your essence, if you don't believe in the soul, your essence, your inner being, whatever it is, I don't care what you call it. But when you live who you truly are, your soul sings, you're alive, you're vibrant, you're passionate, and your body is healthy. When you go against the truth of who you are and work so hard to be who you believe you're supposed to be, the self-betrayal is enormous. And the price you pay is your emotional, spiritual, and physical health. And
can
so,
we just drop that mic for a second? I mean, that's some powerful stuff.
right.
I just want to like give a pause for everybody to take that in for a second because the song that your heart is singing sometimes is very hard to hear. And
Right.
it's in the stillness or in the reflection that we allow ourselves to tune into it. How many people do you know on this earth that keep a TV on at all times, or that need noise to feel like they're satiated, or that everything's okay? And I talked about this on my last broadcast, but so how does silence communicate with noise? And I think the answer to that question is you have to listen really, you have to train yourself to listen for it, because what you're saying is that self-betrayal, when you go off signal, when you're thinking who you need to be or you're shooting on yourself, that's the root cause of much disease and suffering.
Absolutely.
And it's a
Absolutely.
and it's a personal responsibility or a personal mission to be able to hear it and heed it. Um, I want to just rewind half a second about, following those nudges as they come, because from where you got to, it looks like where you started, you never would have been able to see that door. You had to climb a mountain to see the next horizon, to climb the next one to see the next horizon. And so often we all get stuck and mired, and that we have to know what comes next, or that we have to know what our trajectory is. And it's just not so. In motion, we tend to find new opportunities because we're tuning ourselves in to look for them. So, can you just go back to where you say you noticed that certain personalities were coming in with similar ailments? Open that up for me. What made you kind of make that determination when you were seeing people and you started to draw these conclusions? What patterns did you see emerge?
Well, I grew up in a very violent home. So I learned to recognize patterns. This is going to happen, and how can I subvert this? How can I change this? How can I stay out so that, I'm avoiding some of the violence? So you learn to recognize patterns. So for some of us, that's a natural, we just see patterns. And so after about 2 or 3 years, when I started noticing patterns, that those people who were very assertive, if not aggressive, and overprotective of people in their lives, were all starting to present with fibromyalgia. And that men frequently who were being fired or laid off, when there was a period in the 80s and 90s where literally by the thousands people here in Connecticut were being laid off, that prostate cancer was becoming a huge issue. And I don't believe in coincidence. So what's the correlation? And when men were raised to believe their job is to provide for their family as a man, and then they were being laid off, that's an emasculating process. And all of a sudden, prostate cancer was becoming far more frequent. And then people who were CEOs or in the C-suite, and in that keep pushing and pushing and pulling and making it happen, and doing what you got to do. Why were they all having heart attacks? Why were they all developing heart disease? And then noticing that there was no time for a relationship with themselves. with the partners. They were no longer in love with the job they were doing. They were surviving it. They were holding on to their positions. They were pushing to secure their employment. That their heart was no longer part of their journey. And so I began to notice all of these things and was really intrigued. Like, wow, there really is a precursor to disease. There really is a precursor to disorders. And that intrigued me, is what is the variable that some of us are protective, but we don't develop these diseases, we don't develop these disorders. And then began to recognize, as I started asking questions, that when you look at, if two parents are diabetic, and diabetes is a precondition based on family history, and these two parents have 5 children, all 5 kids should have diabetes. And yet we know statistically 2 or 3 of those kids will and the others won't. So what always intrigues me is, what's the variable? I've been curious since I was born, I think, so what's the variable in that? And you realize the 2 or 3 that have diabetes, they have the same political belief systems as parents, the same religious belief systems as the parents, the same social beliefs, the same lifestyle. They probably even watch all the same TV shows. Their design, their decorating is the same. Look at the kids in the family that don't have it. They have a very different lifestyle, very different eating patterns. They have very different belief systems, very different approach to life. And you realize, whoa. So if the variable is, I do life differently, so those predispositions never need to be actualized, we have the ability not to actualize predispositions. That intrigued me. So I researched that further and coming in. And what I ended up doing was, having been certified in all of these approaches to the thought through Eastern medicine and other styles of healthcare, started noticing, what are people's belief systems? And so I started taking medical histories for my psychology patients versus just, their psych history. Have you been in therapy before? What were you discussed? What was your diagnosis? And so forth, so forth. I also said, come back from a place of birth on up to today, as much as you can remember. What is your medical history? And when I took their medical history and wrote it all down and was finished, then said, okay, what was going on in your life when you broke your ankle? What was going on in your life when you developed tonsillitis? What was going on in your life when you developed this cancer or this treatment? And when they could begin to see that each of these occurrences took place when something was going on in their life that was more difficult to handle, they began to recognize the way they were not handling the stress in their lives was being demonstrated through their physical health.
Mm-hmm.
So by
Yeah.
taking medical history, I learned much more about how they dealt with or didn't deal with life than by taking a psych history, because I've seen some people with the same therapist 15 years, and I would say they've never really did therapy. They had somebody to listen to the stories.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and it comes from like our most recent past, in the past 4 years, around fear and isolation. Do you
Right.
have any data or any stories you can share? I mean, I have some personal anecdotes and beliefs of my own. But how does that present in your body of work? Are these typically related to anything, or how do they affect your physical, spiritual, and emotional health?
What happened with the COVID element of exclusion, of being in homes, being isolated, for those who have a propensity for depression, I believe we are as depressed as we believe we are powerless.
Mm.
All right. So when somebody presents to me with, I'm feeling really depressed, I'll say, what area of your life do you feel powerless? And when we can address that, and I give them some options, oh my God, what a great idea. All of a sudden I don't see the depression. I say, oh, I can't wait to get out of here, because I'm going to go pursue this and do this and it's like, okay, welcome back to life. All right. And so when people were isolated, and they felt powerless to make connections, especially single people. They felt powerless to reach out and meet and have a social circle. I would work with them. We create telehealth showed up, and I don't do a lot of therapy anymore. As I mentioned a moment ago, it's really my give back. I do business coaching, but leadership coaching and taking them and their business to the next level. But it's looking at the depression that showed up because of feeling powerless, feeling inept. And when depression shows up, my thought is, how do you handle depression? For some, I'm going to gain 70 pounds. For some, I'm going to start drinking a bottle of wine every night. For some, I'm just going to sink deeper and deeper in a hole. And so everybody dealt with that illusion of powerlessness, because nobody is powerless, but dealt with that illusion of powerless in a different way. And when I highly encouraged joining a networking group or joining a group of whatever that may look like, 2 or 3 friends that you're all really careful that you're not out there mingling with 40 people. You're taking, because there were those who didn't believe COVID existed, didn't believe vaccines were necessary. Everybody has different belief systems. Go for it, whatever your belief system is, right? And so for those who chose to get out there, but only with friends who are also careful, do so once a week. Get together with friends and have dinner. Have a couple glasses of wine, laugh, enjoy, share the stories, do whatever, so that you have something to look forward to, which keeps us excited. So in addition to something to look forward to, you had people to laugh and cry with. You had people who could lovingly laugh at you and laugh with you.
Yes.
Right? And so you really got to be seen. And once you're seen, you could go home for a week because next Thursday night or next Wednesday night, whatever, I'm getting back out again with the crowd. So you're being fed emotionally and being fed spiritually. So the illusions of powerlessness and depression really started to become minimized. And then what can we do productively while you're at home? And then all of a sudden that shifted. Anxiety shows up, so different emotions were showing up and being exaggerated because of the isolation. So I really encouraged, let's look at and making it normal. When we don't have somebody to help normalize our sadness or normalize our anxiety or, whatever it may be, normalize our self-hatred, and all of that needs to be normalized.
Oh, I normalized my neuroses early on, just saying. So here we are. We had homeschooled our children, so there wasn't so much of a big bump in our lifestyle, except that we couldn't really go anywhere. So now we were home together all the time. I started managing everyone's shower schedule. So I was like, I need to plan something. So we're gonna mark this on the calendar. And I like to get that sense of like control of like I can do something. Like my family is like, but I'm like, I'm making sure everyone, if we have to spend all this time together, we better smell nice,
Whatever works for you, darling, you go with that way.
Yeah. And so during that time, I also reclaimed a space in my home because I said, usually I need for me, I know to take care of myself, I needed a place to be by myself. But with everyone home all the time with, the devices, we started diversifying what screen time meant. My kids were just about in that like 8 to 10 range and or maybe it was a little more. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we're like, okay, so you have friend time on the screen, you have message time, you have game time, and you have like work time. Okay, right. So now it's not just screen time, it's like these are our portals to the world. How will we use them best? Because we're all in one geographic location. And I reclaimed my own screen time because I started networking by Zoom. I'm like, okay. And thus the importance and the gravity around masterminding really started to become more pronounced in my life and in my work because we were, like you were saying, we were meeting on a weekly basis. We had something to look forward to. We had real estate investment in common. So we were all working. How are we going to go about this? What kind of activity you're seeing out there? We had a forum in the world, and that kept me sane. It's what allowed me to grow through that. And now I love virtual Zoom rooms. Got to tell you, it's one of my deepest joys because it helped me to heal and to evolve through a time that was uncertain and a little bit scary. But I remembered one of my family members calling me and saying, "Why are you so active? Aren't you worried about this?" And I'm like, I have my friends for those conversations. Like I have one friend about this medical conversation, one friend about the environmental conversation, one friend about, the spiritual or the psychic evaluations. And I just said, no, I'm not afraid. I I realize there's unknown, but as an entrepreneur, most of us are out here thinking like we deal with unknowns all the time. So this is just, if I can look at it in a way that this is just another unknown, I wonder what the opportunity that this is.
Right. Fear
And
is a choice. Fear is a choice. We don't know what's coming. None of us do. And we can make plans. And I truly believe in making plans. One of my books is Dreams Are Only the Beginning of Becoming Who You're Meant to Be. When you create a dream for yourself, a vision for where you're going, it gives you a direction in which you're going to grow. What skill sets do I need to develop? What worldview am I going to develop? How am I going to do this? The fact is, you now have something to work towards, which is exciting. But yet, you may find 3/4 of the way there that evolved this woman into this woman who's now ready to see another opportunity you never would have been ready for back here. But
yeah.
while you're following that vision, you actually were preparing to go over here, which feeds you even more, which excites you even more, which takes you even further. But notice that when you were talking about this, you're somebody who loves to be in control, and you're somebody who likes order. All right. How many people judge themselves because they need to be in control and they want order? Why not just accept that's who I am? That's my personality. It's not good or just bad. It just is. This is my personality. And how can I do it in a way that's not absolutely intrusive or offensive? But this is who I am, and this is what I need in my life. And you created that, which allowed you to stay alive and vibrant and present, right?
And
And that, which is, God, to be wide open and just self-accepting of whoever we are. You know,
uh-huh. Yep. I have an affirmation now that I repeat every morning. I fully and unconditionally love and accept myself exactly the way that I am.
right.
And
And
whatever way I show up that day, that's who I am.
you're right. And none of us are done. None of us are going to be done to the day we go home. But we're always going to be in process. And to be angry because I'm not where I should be, whatever that's supposed to mean, right? I am where I should be, but I'm on the way to where I'm going, whatever that's going to look
Oh,
like.
I love that. I am, wait, say that again. I am where I am. Replay.
I, I,
Go back in the recording and I'll listen to it again. But that was really powerful. But I'm on my way to where I'm going. I am where I'm supposed to be, and I'm on my way to where I'm going.
and I,
Obviously.
yeah, and I don't know what that looks like. I have an idea, but at any point in time, I could shift it. Every one of the things I did in my life, I did for life, and yet it ended up changing. I was in religious life for life. I was married for life. I lived in the Caribbean for life. I was a psychologist for life. And yet, not, because in spite of ourselves, if we follow our truth, we outgrow where we were. And this dream is perfect for the 20-year-old, but it may not be perfect for the 30-year-old, you
And
know?
I love what you said about I did it for life. There's a little bit of a nuance in there I just want to open up.
Go
And
ahead.
one of it is the notion that something for life means forever. But in
Right,
your case, what I'm hearing is you're saying this, your definition of for life evolved. So the definition itself changed. You did it to be alive. I did
right.
it for life.
Yeah,
Yes. And that doesn't have to be the assumption of forever. It can be because it brings you joy. And I think this is something we talked about last time we were on the phone about me shoulding on myself, blaming myself because I had this notion in my career path that I kept resetting because I kept following joy and saying, "Oh, yes, I'm taking this opportunity. I'm going headlong. This is going to be the best thing ever." And it was until it wasn't. And
right.
the joy, the glitter faded, or I reached the full potential of the experience that I was there to get, and I would move on. I would transition from that job to the next one, or I would leave an industry and start over in a new one. And for a long time, it brought me a lot of sadness because I thought, well, I can't keep a job. If I'm supposed to be someone who gets a job and keeps it forever, I'm failing miserably at that. But at the end of the day, the realization was, oh, someone asked me last night, actually, what did you want to be when you grew up? I'm like, happy? Like, I don't know. This joy evolution, the things that we do, like, that's what it's for life. I
Right. When you think about it, when I was growing up, when I was young, 7, 8 years old, I wanted to be a rockette. My dream was to be a rockette. And I thought, what do I love about? I love the life. I love the vibrancy. I love the movement and the aliveness of it all. I never became a rockette, but boy, when I look at every piece of my life, I was doing that rockette energy every stage of my life. And I'm still a dancer. I still love to go dancing, but it's that liveness, that vibrancy, that da 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 da, there we go. It's who some of us are, and it's not something I want to outgrow. I express it differently all the time, but it's not what I want to
Mhm.
outgrow. And when you
That's
look
it.
at that, when we make a choice and we outgrow it, that's not failure. That's growth. To stagnate is death. We keep growing and changing, and sometimes we outgrow that particular job, but sometimes we outgrow the particular position we have at that company, and I now need to go to this position because I've outgrown this one.
Mhm.
Sometimes we outgrow the company. It's if you stay in touch with who you are, you recognize when it's time to grow to the next level. And because it's not so black and white, in this job, you already are growing to the next level. Because every job you've taken, if you've truly been present in it, while you were there, you were developing insight, you were developing skills, you were developing abilities, you were developing a greater sense of self, a greater sense of capability. And that needed to be challenged so you could continue to grow.
It's
So
not failure.
it's
It's
not
growth.
failure, it's a gift of growth.
Mhm. Mhm. And isn't that the inversion of what we're taught to measure ourselves? It's an internal metric
Right?
that tells us you're growing, that has been subverted most often through our upbringing or through our schooling,
Mhm.
that tells us if it's not right, it's a failure. If it's not what was predicted,
Right.
it's wrong.
Well,
And
because we're raised to look for safety. We're raised to look for safety. And some of us are just called to risk.
oh, heck yeah, lady. This is why we're friends, you know? And some of us are just called to have that evolution, that exploration, and to
Yes.
be present to it.
Yeah, always. It's just aliveness. It's exciting. It's like I wonder what the next adventure is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Adventure is the name of the game.
Yeah.
And I think to do things for life, if I have taken anything away from this conversations, it's the change in perspective around the definition of what we say we're doing things for. And doing things for life, I love that. I'm taking that with me. I'm putting it right here in my pocket. That's not actually there. And I'm taking it with me into
You
my future. So I mean, I've had a lovely time here talking with you, allowing all of our listeners to have kind of a seat at this table, because I believe that you are one of the most profound people I've ever met.
thank
So
you.
you are so welcome. It is the truth. I invite a lot of people to this table, and you have a special place in my heart, for all that you've done and all that you're continuing to do to provide value in the world. So, for people who are interested to learn more or to connect with you, whether they're looking for leadership coaching or more of your LinkedIn lives, where can they go best to seek you out?
They could go my website, www.askdrdorothy.com. They can find me on LinkedIn at Dorothy A. Martin-Neville, PhD. They can drop me a line at Dorothy@askdrdorothy.com. You know, I'm here. I love what I do. I love service. I love supporting others. Flying, you know, it's what I do. What a hypocrite I would be if I didn't support everybody else to just jump in and really go for the journey. Staying grounded, but flying at the same time, you know, it's what it's all about. It's what it is all about, coming alive. And as my first book says, dreams are only the beginning of becoming who you're meant to be. The more dreams you allow yourself to follow, the more and more you become who you're meant to be on this journey.
And I think that message not only was meant just for me, right for right now, but for always. You know, keep the dreams alive. That's the whole purpose of having our conversations here on Rise and Shine, why we're here, why we're talking to one another and getting valuable insights from the road and the passage of growth. This is why we're here. So thank you for joining us. If you haven't yet, leave us a comment what you liked most about today's discussion. Make sure you click the like and subscribe and don't miss another episode. We broadcast and premiere every Monday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So until next time, friends, we will see you same bat time and same bat channel. So don't miss the next one. Dr. D, thanks a million. It's been great.
Welcome, darling. Good to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers.